All the monks of the Xiaolialayan temple knew that Dugong's residence was in the basement of the Manbiop palace. However, there were only a handful of people who had personally entered the Dugong's residence before. They were wary because Dugong dealt with poison. This is because anyone who is subjected to poison, even if it's the most skilled warriors, could have their lives in danger. For that reason, at some point, Dugong's residence was treated like a forbidden area in the Xiaolialayan temple, so only few people knew about its internal structure. It was the same with Hyalbul. Although he was the sect leader of the Xiaolialayan temple, he never visited Dugong's residence. He would just summon Dugong whenever he needed him. So today was the first time Hyalbul had entered the residence of Dugong. The first thing that came to his mind when he followed Pyawul into Dugong's residence was that the place was filthy and spacious. He never knew that such a huge cave existed in the basement of the Xiaolialayan temple. But he could not afford to admire the view. He currently needs to catch Pyawul. Dozens of monks have already lost their lives to Pyawul and the wolf children. It was difficult to estimate how much more damage he would cause if he was left alive. Kill him. You must catch him. The demon blood monks chased after Pyawul with bloodshot eyes. The anger of the demon blood monks, who had already lost dozens of companions, pierced the sky. All they had in their minds was the idea of catching and killing the cowardly assassin. Anger makes a person blind, and blindness consequently narrows a person's vision. That was the current state of the demon blood monks. They only had Pyawul in their sight. A ghost flying sword came out from Pyawul's waist. The demon blood monks who were chasing after him faltered. They thought that the flying sword was aimed at them. However, contrary to their expectations, the place where the ghost dagger flew was the ceiling of the underground cave. Dozens of small pouches hung from the ceiling. Puk. The ghost daggers pierced the dozen pouches all at once. The pouch ruptured. Then a fine powder spread inside the underground cave. Pyawul sent a message to Soma and the other two children. Hold your breath and cover yourself with a blanket. In the basement, there was a quilt used by Dugong and his disciples. Soma and the children followed Pyawul's instructions without asking why. PSSS. At that moment, the powder sprinkled from the pouch and landed on the floor. The demon blood monks and the other monks who were rushing towards Pyawul were covered in powder. Karyak. Huk. At that moment, screams erupted from among the monks. Dark red blood flowed from their noses and mouths. It's poison. Everyone, hold your breath. The 10 monks belatedly exclaimed, but by the time they did, it was already too late. Many monks were struggling with poison. Many of them died before they could even take 3 or 4 steps. The powder they inhaled was the 7-step soul-chasing acid produced by Dugong. The terrifying poison that would kill anyone before they can even take 7 steps, easily took the lives of the Xiaolialayan temple monks. Help me. Ah. Please. The cries of the monks echoed in the underground cave. The effect was even more fatal, because they were caught off guard and had immediately inhaled the 7-step soul-chasing acid. The venomous poison melted their internal organs in an instant and took their lives. Unbelievable. Hyalbul flared up at the horrors happening in front of him. Everything was falling apart right in front of his eyes. The monks who have led the Xiaolialayan temple up until now, and even those who will lead the sect in the future, were all struggling with the 7 soul-chasing acid. The tragedy is not over yet. Qui! A cracking sound that cut through the darkness erupted from everywhere. Arg! Cook! The monks, who were barely avoiding the 7 soul-chasing acid, fell down, screaming. Hidden weapons. He's throwing weapons. The bodies of the dead monks had sharp daggers stuck in their bodies. It wasn't directly thrown by Pyawul. It was fired using an engine device made of items from Dugong's residence. There was no need to complicate or elaborate it. The darkness of the area and extreme chaos obscured the monks from locating the engine device. Hyalbul rushed into the middle of the hall. The 7 soul-chasing acid was still falling around. However, the 7 soul-chasing acid was all burned down before it could even reach the body of Hyalbul. A red dragon from his supreme layer of the heavenly dragon technique was swirling around Hyalbul's entire body. The red dragon-shaped chi burned all the poison. The hands of Hyalbul swelled greatly. Hup! He swung his hands wildly. Then a strong air current arose and gathered everything around him. The great imprint of Vajrayana, one wheel of fire. 2. Hururu! The venom of the 7 soul-chasing acid, which had spread in the underground cave, flowed towards Hyalbul along with the air current. Thick drops of sweat were forming on Hyalbul's forehead. Even though he had reached a high point in martial arts, it was not easy to collect all the poisons that spread throughout the underground cave. But he had to. Even at this moment, his disciples were all bleeding and collapsing. If he delays collecting the poison in the air, the injuries on his disciples will increase. Even though it was Hyalbul who reigned in the Zizing as an epitome of fear, he could not bear to watch the disciples of the Xiaolialayan fading away. The 10 monks also moved to save at least one more of their disciples. Chot! Go here. Some avoided the 7 soul-chasing acid with their chi, while others found refuge in places where the poison did not reach. At the same time, Soma and the children, who were avoiding the poison by covering themselves with a blanket, began to move. I'll kill you. King. Soma used the 7 rings hanging from his neck. Dian and Yunyo attacked while holding their breath. Arg. Ku. The 7 wheels fired by Soma immediately stopped the monks from breathing. The 7 wheels were called the 7 rings 3. It was a demon soldier 2 used by a monk of the Xiaolialayan temple a long time ago. However, Mokwan handed it to Soma because everyone had forgotten how to use it since it was so difficult to use. The demon soldiers, which were supposed to be used for the Xiaolialayan temple, were instead tearing up the monks. I'm going to kill everyone. Everyone. The innocent smile on Soma's face was no longer present. His usual bright smile was just a mask to cover his pain. After being kidnapped here, Soma did not have a moment where he did not feel pain. If he was not being physically abused, he was being abused mentally. Mokwan committed numerous sadistic and inhumane acts towards Soma and the other children. Because of that, Soma and the rest of the children were mentally exhausted. Soma lost even his last remaining humanity when Mokwan killed the parents of the children who lost. Soma still remembered the moment when he had cut off his father's arm. He deliberately cut off his father's arm to save his father, but the memories remain painful for him. He made up his mind after that. He will get his revenge against the Xiaolialayan temple, no matter what. It was the same for Yunyo and Guyan. They don't care anymore about what would happen to their lives. They already had no attachments to life. The only thing that drives them to move is their desire for revenge against the Xiaolialayan temple. If they could get their revenge, they're even willing to lay down their lives. You crazy bastards! How dare you bite the owner who raised you? The monks who barely escaped the 7-step soul-chasing acid rushed towards the children. The children stood their ground and did not avoid them. A hell of a mess unfolded. Seeing the scene, Hyalbul's eyes lit up. But he could not afford to move right now. The 7-step soul-chasing acid was still agglomerating in between his palm. Hururu! The 7-step soul-chasing acid became a round sphere in between his palms. Hyalbul raised his chi even more. Then the supreme layer of the heavenly dragon was executed and wrapped around the sphere that was circling between the palms. Fire was the opposite of poison. No matter how terrifying the 7-step soul-chasing acid was, it could not withstand the supreme layer of the heavenly dragon. The supreme layer of the heavenly dragon burned all the poisonous air of 7-step soul-chasing acid in an instant. But Hyalbul couldn't even afford to celebrate. Because even at this moment, his subordinates were dying. Hyalbul, who was about to move, let out a groan involuntarily, because something had tightened around his neck. Thread? Taking advantage of the extreme confusion, Pyoul hung a noose around the neck of Hyalbul. Many people have lost their lives in this way. However, Hyalbul was different from any other warriors Pyowool had ever dealt with. Tududuk. Hyalbul grabbed the thread with both hands and easily cut it off. This was the same thread that usually cuts off the skin of Pyowool's enemies. But it did not leave a single scar on the hands of Hyalbul. However, Pyowool was not disappointed. This kind of reaction was within his expectations. Sayat. A ghost dagger was released. It was a ghost dagger that took the lives of many people until now. However, Hyalbul managed to block the attack by executing the supreme layer of the heavenly dragon. Turtututing. The ghost dagger was blocked by the intangible wall. Have you used up all your tricks? Hyalbul roared in anger and flew towards the Pyowool. He raised his right fist. Like a meteor that cuts through the night sky, a bright red light appeared in his fist. It was Chi Fist. 4. The supreme layer of the heavenly dragon is one of the most powerful martial arts in the world. If the said technique is mastered, it was possible to use Chi as if breathing. Kwang. The space where Pyowool was hiding was destroyed. But Pyowool wasn't there. When Chi Fist showed signs of manifestation, he already moved using black lightning. The dark underground cave had the best conditions to unfold the black lightning. Pyowool had his ghost daggers in both of his hands. Sayat. The ghost dagger with the soul-reaping thread attached was aiming for Hyalbul. Your tricks won't work on me. Hyalbul continued to unleash the supreme layer of the heavenly dragon. Tadang. The ghost daggers bounced off. However, the soul-reaping thread skillfully manipulated the dagger and attacked again. The ghost dagger danced. Hyalbul could not advance any more and had to swing his arms to stop the ghost daggers. You dare. Hyalbul raised his chi to a new level. Then, the strong force swirling around his body grew stronger. PSSS. The ghost dagger could not stand the force and crumbled to dust. However, the soul-reaping thread that was hanging on the dagger was fine. Sayat. The soul-reaping thread wrapped around Hyalbul like a snake. Towing. At that moment, the supreme layer of the heavenly dragon repelled the soul-reaping thread. The soul-reaping thread could not do anything at all against Hyalbul's technique. Die. Judging that Pyowool had been disarmed, Hyalbul executed the heavenly dragon flight 3 to narrow the distance in an instant. Like a heavenly dragon flying, the movement of Hyalbul was smooth and delicate. Pyowool used snake steps in response. It was like a battle between a dragon and a snake. By all accounts, it was Pyowool who was at the disadvantage. In fact, the war was leaning towards Hyalbul's favor. Quakwang. Every time Hyalbul would swing his hand, an explosion would break out, destroying the whole area. Hyalbul's eyes gleamed. He thought that he was about to win. If I push him a little more, I will be able to catch him. Shoo. His chi that he released was dodged by Pyowool by a hair's breadth. A little more. Hyalbul changed the trajectory of his attack and tried to hit Pyowool. Yet, he missed him again by a narrow margin. More. Hyalbul had struck again with all his strength. Bang! The place where Pyowool had been had exploded. But Pyowool was nowhere to be found since he escaped yet again by a narrow margin. You bastard! How long are you going to run away? Hyalbul erupted in anger. Pyowool didn't answer. He only stared at Hyalbul. Seeing Pyowool's appearance made Hyalbul even angrier. You bastard! Hyalbul attacked Pyowool. This time Pyowool deflected his attack. It is possible to win by exchanging attacks with your opponent. Through the exchange of blows, the opponent gets impatient little by little. This causes the enemy to fall under the illusion that if he can get a little closer, he would be able to win. Just one more step. If I reach out a little more, I can win. If I just push harder. It induces the enemy to move beyond their limits, and eventually falls into an ant hell from which they cannot escape. Devil's Hell. Hyalbul was sinking into the pit of hell, created by Pyowool, without realizing it.